On June 12 to 13, 2025, Israel executed a major military operation dubbed Operation Rising Lion, targeting over 100 strategic locations in Iran. This operation was focused on crippling Iran's nuclear capabilities, missile sites, and military leadership, marking a significant escalation in tensions in the already volatile Middle Eastern region. Detailed overview of the operation. June 12, 2025, the operation commenced with Israel's Air Force deploying approximately 200 fighter jets in a coordinated strike against key Iranian facilities, particularly the Natanz nuclear enrichment site, which has been central to Iran's nuclear aspirations. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu justified the action by citing imminent threats posed by Iran's advancements in nuclear weaponization, claiming that Iran could produce a nuclear weapon within a very short timeframe if not stopped. June 13, 2025, following the initial wave of airstrikes, reports surfaced detailing significant casualties among Iranian military officials and nuclear scientists. Notably, high-ranking members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRGC) were reportedly killed, including General Hossein Salami and Major General Mohammad Bagheri. The Iranian government characterized these strikes as a declaration of war, vowing severe retaliation against Israel. Immediate consequences and reactions. The Israeli strikes prompted an intense response from Iran, which reported launching approximately 100 drones towards Israel in retaliation. The situation heightened fears of a broader regional conflict, leading to increased military readiness in neighboring countries. Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei condemned the attacks and labeled Israel's actions as a grave threat to regional security. The Iranian Foreign Ministry also stated that the United States, as Israel's principal ally, would bear responsibility for the consequences of the strikes, emphasizing the need for international condemnation against what they termed Israel's adventurism. International reactions. The operation drew widespread condemnation from various regional players, including Saudi Arabia, and calls for de-escalation from Western nations, particularly the United Kingdom. While some reports indicated that former U.S. President Donald Trump praised the Israeli actions as necessary for regional security, current U.S. officials distanced themselves from the strikes, asserting they were unilateral actions taken by Israel. Civilian impact and public sentiment. In Tehran, civilians experienced a night of terror as explosions rocked the city. Many residents reported chaos and confusion, scrambling for information amidst the blasts. The human toll of the strikes was stark, with reports of civilian casualties and widespread fear permeating the populace. Conclusion. The precision strikes carried out by Israel on Iranian nuclear facilities represent a critical juncture in Middle Eastern geopolitics, with the potential for escalating military confrontations. The international community is closely monitoring the situation, with calls for restraint and dialogue to prevent further deterioration of relations between Israel and Iran. As both sides brace for potential further confrontations, the fragility of regional stability remains a pressing concern, underlining the contentious dynamics of U.S. Israeli-Iranian relations. The content presents a detailed account of Israel's military Operation Rising Lion, which involved precision strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities and military sites, leading to a significant escalation in regional tensions. Here are some counterintuitive elements identified within the narrative. 1. U.S. support versus denial. While former U.S. President Donald Trump publicly praised the Israeli strikes as excellent, suggesting a level of coordination between the U.S. and Israel, official U.S. statements characterized the operation as a unilateral action by Israel. This duality raises questions about the actual level of collaboration and the complexities of U.S. foreign policy, suggesting that public and private stances may differ significantly. 2. Iran's reaction. The immediate Iranian response involved launching approximately 100 drones towards Israel, which indicates a capacity for retaliation that may not have been anticipated by Israel or its allies. This counteraction showcases Iran's military readiness and willingness to escalate the conflict, contrasting with the expectation that such a strike would lead to a significant weakening of Iranian military capabilities. 3. Public perception versus military operations. The civilian experiences reported from Tehran, describing chaos and panic during the strikes, highlight a disconnect between military objectives and the human impact of such operations. While military leaders may view the strikes as a tactical success, the psychological and social consequences for civilians in conflict zones often receive less attention in strategic discussions. For nature of the nuclear threat, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claimed that Iran was on the verge of developing nuclear weapons, asserting a sense of urgency for preemptive action. However, Western intelligence assessments prior to the strikes suggested that while Iran was stockpiling components, it had not made a definitive decision to build a bomb. This discrepancy illustrates the tension between perceived imminent threats and actual intelligence assessments, complicating the narrative surrounding nuclear proliferation. 5. International diplomacy versus military action. The timing of the strikes just before a new round of U.S.-Iranian diplomacy in Oman is striking. This suggests that military action was used as a means of undermining diplomatic efforts, which traditionally aims to de-escalate tensions. Such a tactic might be seen as counterproductive to long-term peace but effective in achieving immediate military objectives, thereby revealing a complex interplay between diplomacy and military strategy. 6. Global security implications. The Iranian Foreign Ministry's statement that the strikes expose global security to unprecedented threat contrasts with the perception that targeted military strikes can stabilize a region by removing perceived threats. This highlights a counterintuitive understanding that military actions can create broader instability rather than resolve underlying tensions, as they may provoke further violence and retaliation. In summary, the dynamics surrounding Israel's military operation against Iran reveal complexities in international relations, military strategy, and civilian impacts that challenge conventional narratives about warfare, diplomacy, and security. The report on Israel's military operation against Iran, specifically Operation Rising Lion, contains several crucial details that many may overlook, but which hold significant implications for regional stability and international relations. Here are the key points that deserve further scrutiny. 1. Casualties of high-profile figures. The report emphasizes the killing of high-ranking members of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRGC) and nuclear scientists. This is not merely a tactical victory for Israel, it symbolizes a direct assault on Iran's military leadership and scientific capabilities. The loss of these figures can severely impact Iran's operational capacity and morale. The significance lies in the precedent it sets. Attacking not just facilities but also the human capital behind nuclear advancements may provoke a more volatile response from Iran, potentially leading to an escalation of hostilities. 2. International reactions and the role of the U.S. While many reports mention the international backlash against Israel's strikes, the nuanced responses are often glossed over. The divided opinion within the U.S. itself, particularly former President Trump's supportive stance juxtaposed against the current administration's distancing from the operation, reflects a deeper schism in American foreign policy. This could undermine U.S. credibility in diplomatic negotiations with Iran and signal to allies that U.S. policy may be inconsistent and influenced by previous administrations' legacies. Understanding this dynamic is crucial as it may affect future negotiations and alliances in the region. 3. Iran's counteractions. The mention of Iran launching approximately 100 drones at Israel post-strike is significant. This immediate retaliation indicates that Iran is prepared to escalate the conflict and is willing to utilize its drone capabilities, which could alter the balance of military power in the region. Such a response may not only provoke further military action from Israel but could also draw in other regional players, leading to a wider conflict. The potential for drone warfare in this scenario is a modern military tactic that could redefine engagements in the Middle East. 4. Civilian impact and public sentiment. The report notes the terror experienced by civilians in Tehran during the strikes, which is often overshadowed by a focus on military strategy and geopolitical implications. The human element, civilians scrambling for safety and expressing fear, underscores the real consequences of military actions. This public sentiment could lead to increased anti-Israeli sentiments and fuel nationalist or radical elements within Iran, potentially destabilizing the region further. The psychological impact on the civilian population is significant as it can influence domestic support for government actions and policy decisions. 5. Comparative analysis of coverage. The differences in coverage among various media sources reveal significant biases and editorial choices that may shape public perception. For example, The Guardian's detailed account of casualties contrasts with CNN and Reuters, which focus more on broader implications without as much emphasis on individual losses. This variance highlights how narratives are constructed and how they may influence public opinion, especially in the context of framing Israel as a unilateral aggressor versus a nation acting in self-defense. 6. Strategic military messaging. Israeli officials framing the operation as a preemptive strike against an imminent threat plays into a broader narrative of national security that resonates with both domestic and international audiences. This rhetoric is significant because it justifies military action under the guise of prevention rather than retaliation. It sets a dangerous precedent for preemptive strikes which could be invoked in future conflicts, potentially leading to a more militarized approach to diplomacy. 7. Potential for escalation and global security implications. The report hints at the potential for the conflict to draw in global powers, particularly given Iran's threats of retaliation and the U.S. position as Israel's ally. This situation could escalate beyond a regional conflict affecting global oil markets, international security frameworks, and diplomatic relations among major powers. The interconnectedness of global politics means that a conflict in the Middle East can have ripple effects worldwide, impacting everything from energy prices to international diplomatic relations. Conclusion. The details surrounding Operation Rising Lion are not just about military tactics and immediate outcomes, they encapsulate broader themes of leadership losses, international relations, civilian impacts, and the potential for escalated conflict. Recognizing these nuances is vital for understanding the full scope of the implications of Israel's military actions and the fragile state of peace in the Middle East. As the situation develops, the interplay of these factors will likely shape future engagements and policy decisions, making it essential for observers to remain vigilant and informed. 1. Scope and strategic intent of the operation. Operation Rising Lion marks a significant escalation in hostilities between Israel and Iran, with Israel targeting over 100 sites, particularly the Natanz nuclear facility. This operation is characterized as a preemptive strike aimed at preventing Iran from advancing its nuclear weapons capabilities. The strategic intent behind such extensive military action suggests Israel's assessment that time was running out to address the perceived existential threat posed by a nuclear-armed Iran. This point warrants discussion on the implications of preemptive military actions in international relations and the risks of miscalculating threat levels. 2. International reactions and diplomatic fallout. The operation has sparked widespread condemnation from various countries, including regional powers like Saudi Arabia, and calls for de-escalation from Western nations. The differing responses highlight the complexities of geopolitical alliances in the region. Notably, while former U.S. President Trump expressed support for Israel's actions, current U.S. officials distanced themselves, framing the strikes as unilateral. This divergence raises questions about the U.S.'s role in Middle Eastern conflicts, the reliability of American support for its allies, and the potential for shifts in diplomatic relationships following such military actions. 3. Iran's response and regional stability. Iran's immediate retaliation, including launching approximately 100 drones at Israel, underscores the potential for rapid escalation into wider conflict. This aspect emphasizes the precarious balance of power in the region and the risks associated with military responses. The narrative surrounding Iran's military capabilities and willingness to engage in retaliatory actions can impact regional stability. as neighboring countries may feel compelled to reassess their security strategies. An in-depth analysis of Iran's military posture and regional alliances would be essential to understand the broader implications of this conflict. For humanitarian impact and civilian experience, reports from civilians in Tehran describe a chaotic and terrifying atmosphere during the strikes, illustrating the human cost of military operations. This element of the narrative provides a critical perspective on the consequences of state actions on ordinary people. The civilian impact of military conflicts often gets overshadowed by political and military discourse, yet it plays a crucial role in shaping public opinion and influencing future policy decisions. Analyzing the humanitarian implications and the psychological effects of such conflicts on civilian populations can contribute to a more comprehensive understanding of warfare beyond military objectives. 1. Operation Opera 1981. On June 7, 1981, Israel conducted a surprise airstrike on the Osirak nuclear reactor in Iraq. Known as Operation Opera, Israel's intelligence indicated that Iraq was developing nuclear weapons capabilities. The operation involved 8 F-16 fighter jets that successfully destroyed the reactor, effectively delaying Iraq's nuclear ambitions for years. The attack was met with international condemnation, particularly from Arab nations, but was justified by Israel as a necessary measure for national security. This operation is often cited as a precedent for preemptive strikes against perceived nuclear threats. 2. The Six-Day War 1967. The Six-Day War was a pivotal conflict in the Middle East that began on June 5, 1967. Tensions between Israel and its neighboring Arab states, including Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, escalated over territorial disputes and military posturing. In a preemptive strike, Israel launched airstrikes against Egyptian airfields, decimating the Egyptian Air Force. The conflict resulted in Israel's significant territorial gains, including the West Bank, Gaza Strip, Sinai Peninsula, and Golan Heights. The war reshaped the geopolitical landscape of the region and highlighted the volatility of Middle Eastern politics. 3. Operation Cast Lead 2008-2009. Beginning on December 27, 2008, Israel initiated Operation Cast Lead, a military campaign in the Gaza Strip primarily targeting Hamas in response to rocket fire into Israeli territory. The operation lasted for 22 days and aimed to disrupt Hamas's military capabilities, including smuggling tunnels and weapon stockpiles. The campaign drew widespread international criticism due to the high number of civilian casualties and the humanitarian crisis that ensued in Gaza. It underscored the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the complexities of military engagements in densely populated areas. The recent escalation of tensions between Israel and Iran, marked by Israel's large-scale military operation, Operation Rising Lion, has profound implications for the future of regional and global geopolitics. This operation, which targeted key Iranian nuclear facilities and military leadership, represents not just a tactical military maneuver but a significant shift in the dynamics of Middle Eastern power relations. Here are predictions for the future based on current events and historical trends. 1. Increased regional tensions and military engagements. The immediate fallout from the Israeli strikes will likely lead to a significant escalation in military engagements between Israel and Iranian-affiliated forces throughout the region. Iran's vow for severe punishment suggests that retaliatory actions may not be limited to direct confrontations but could also extend to proxy wars in Syria, Lebanon via Hezbollah, and Iraq. This could result in a cycle of retaliatory strikes that may draw other regional powers into the conflict, further destabilizing the region. 2. Potential for broader conflict. As Iran retaliates, there is a high risk of a broader conflict that could involve not just Israel and Iran but also other regional players like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, who may feel threatened by Iranian military capabilities. The possibility of miscalculations during military operations could lead to unintended escalations, prompting a regional war that could involve international actors including the United States and Russia. 3. Shift in U.S. foreign policy. The U.S. response to Israel's actions reveals a complex dynamic. While U.S. officials have distanced themselves from the military operation, former President Donald Trump's supportive comments indicate a faction within U.S. politics that may advocate for a more aggressive stance against Iran. Future U.S. administrations may find themselves pressured to choose between supporting Israel's military actions and managing the fallout with Iran, potentially leading to a re-evaluation of U.S. foreign policy in the region. 4. Nuclear proliferation concerns. The strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities could accelerate Iran's efforts to develop nuclear weapons capabilities. Feeling cornered, Iran may expedite its nuclear program, potentially leading to a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. This situation could prompt other nations in the region such as Saudi Arabia and Turkey to pursue their nuclear capabilities as a counterbalance, thus undermining global non-proliferation efforts. 5. International diplomatic ramifications. The Israeli operation has drawn international condemnation with calls for de-escalation from various countries, including Western allies. The diplomatic fallout may lead to renewed discussions around the Iran nuclear deal with a focus on preventing further military escalation. However, the breakdown of trust between Iran and the West complicates these negotiations, and there may be an increased push for a more robust international framework to address nuclear proliferation and regional security issues. 6. Economic impacts and sanctions. In response to military actions, economic sanctions against Iran may intensify. The Iranian economy, already strained by existing sanctions, could face further hardships, leading to greater instability within the country. Economic distress may fuel domestic unrest and anti-government sentiment in Iran, potentially leading to changes in its political landscape. Conversely, increased military spending could strain Israel's economy and lead to calls for increased international aid and support. 7. Humanitarian crisis and civilian impact. The civilian population in both Israel and Iran will likely bear the brunt of the conflict's consequences. Escalating military operations could lead to significant humanitarian crises, exacerbating refugee flows and increasing the need for international humanitarian assistance. The international community may face challenges in providing aid amidst ongoing conflict, further complicating the humanitarian landscape in the region. 8. Long-term geopolitical realignments. As the conflict unfolds, we may see shifts in alliances within the Middle East. Countries that feel threatened by Iran may form new coalitions or strengthen existing ones, such as the Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and several Arab states. Conversely, Iran may seek to strengthen its ties with Russia and China, both of whom have expressed interest in countering U.S. influence in the region. 9. Public sentiment and nationalism. The conflict may also fuel nationalist sentiments within both countries. In Iran, the government may leverage the situation to rally nationalistic support against perceived external aggression. In Israel, the government may utilize the conflict to unite the population around national security concerns, potentially sidelining dissenting voices and increasing militarization of society. Conclusion. The implications of Israel's military operation against Iran are profound and multifaceted, with potential consequences that extend far beyond the immediate military engagements. In the coming years, the international community will need to navigate an increasingly complex geopolitical landscape, balancing the urgent need for security with the equally pressing demands for diplomatic resolution and humanitarian considerations. The hope for lasting peace in the region remains precarious, and the path forward will require careful management of both military and diplomatic strategies.